Well, hello, besties, and welcome back to the Best of Yvonne podcast, episode 4, where today we are talking about overcoming fear and self-doubt. Such a great topic, you guys. And I see this all the time with my coaching clients, my students, my colleagues, and my friends, that fear is nothing more than false evidence that appears real. It is that monkey chatter, that mind chatter that goes round and round in our head of who am I to be doing X, Y, and Z? Well, guess what? I'm not going to lie. Occasionally I get that, but I've learned tips, tricks, and tactics, strategies, Tony Robbins would say. And that's exactly where I learned it from, was Tony Robbins. And Les Brown also talks about false evidence that appears real. So I'm going to share with you some tips during this episode, but I want to share a couple stories so that you can really gauge where I'm coming from with how severe fear can be and how paralyzing it can be to your career, to your relationships, and in your life in general. So just yesterday, one of my coaching clients, I've been coaching her now, I believe she's on her 17th coaching session. She purchased a 24-week coaching program, and she's a med spa owner in California. And she actually met me speaking retreat in Las Vegas last year. And from that incident, she had really stepped into her full version, like living full out, like taking massive action. So we have seen each other on several occasions this past year. She eventually hired me as her coach. And again, we're about session 17 on her coaching package. So one of the assignments I have my coaching clients do is a vision for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years of like exactly designing the life she wants and where she wants to be. So we also include KPIs because she's a business owner. I really need her vision to include her life and the life of her business. And so she sent me the 2 emails chocked full of her vision, and it is organized just how I asked for it. And so I asked her, I'm like, are you proud of yourself? Do you feel so good that you know exactly where you're headed? And she says, actually, I have a lot of fear. I'm very fearful and scared. And I said, great, let's talk about that. I said, are you fearing success? Are you afraid of what this life might actually be like? And she said, it's just so overwhelming. And I'm like, girl, we're just planting seeds. We're not expecting anything more than a step-by-step approach to this 5-year strategy. I'm just equipping you with the tools on how to fulfill this over the next 5 years. So, and I said, this is the project I want you to focus on until we meet next. I want you to write down all your feelings. Where's the fear coming from? Why do you feel fearful? Truly, what is it you're afraid of? Let's really get to the bottom of this so that we can fix it once and for all. And that's the key right there. If you do not fix the chatter in your head, if you do not fix the fear that you're feeling, putting aside all those feelings into the appropriate places that they truly belong and not just band-aiding them or putting a blanket over them, right? We don't want to suffocate those feelings. We want to actually address them. We want to find out exactly where they're coming from so that we can put them in their place once and for all. Now, when you have a feeling, the best way to approach that feeling is to recognize it and speak to yourself. Okay, I'm feeling anxious right now. I feel butterflies. I feel anxiety. I feel knots in my stomach. Sit with it. Feel it. And oh, girls, am I telling you, it's uncomfortable. I know. But feel it and say to it, I recognize you're there. Now, I know you're there to protect me, but I want you to know I'm safe. We're going to be okay. And you can leave at any time. Talk to your feelings. I know it sounds crazy, but it works. And then we're going to put them where they belong, on the sidelines, for when we really need to be fearful, like when someone's chasing you with a knife, which no one's doing when you're putting together your goals and dreams, okay? So let's put the fear where it belongs. And so that's her project for the next week until we meet again, is to really hone in on where these feelings are coming from. Oftentimes, they're triggers from our past. They're experiences that are coming up that we've experienced before. And we just have to work through them and put them where they belong. But I was extremely proud of her that she took the time, she organized it, and she came up on her own with her own step-by-step plan of what she wants to achieve and where this vision of her life is going. So there's going to be several times and several things throughout your life that are going to trigger fears within you. And you're going to, because this is how the mind works, you really will start to visualize this scenario playing out in your mind. How fearful it is of you failing, of you running out of money, of you losing your job, of you losing your spouse, of you losing, you're going to create a story. Another story I want to share with you is my cute massage therapist, Ginger. I'd seen her for years, and she's a single mother to one child, and he was a teenager. It's been a couple years now. And she just kept having these reoccurring thoughts of him dying. And I go, girl, like what you think about, you bring about. The more you dwell on this, like you imagine these feelings as like dark, smoldering cinder blocks that you are piling on internally inside. They become blocked energy. They really will hinder your organ function. They become disease or dis-ease. And so when you're ruminating over these negative thoughts, these scenarios, these stories, this false evidence that appears real, you literally are bringing about more of this into your life. And eventually you're going to start getting physically ill because having anxious knots in your stomach will affect your digestion system. And so being mindful of your thoughts and then stopping yourself in your thought process and asking yourself, are these thoughts true? What's the chances of my son dying as a young teenager? Well, it can happen, but it's extremely rare. And most of the time, the things we think of hardly ever come to fruition. But when we go over them over and over and over and over again, that is manifestation. We are bringing about what we constantly focus on. So if you have a thought that is making you anxious, that is giving you heart palpitations, that's making you sweaty, that's making you nauseous, that's making you literally paralyzed, you've got to stop that thought. One thing I learned from Ed Milet, listening to him on his podcast, was he will literally stop the thought and he visualizes like scratching it out. Do you guys remember like the CD discs from the 90s? If they got a scratch, they were no good. Well, that's kind of the same thing we want to do in this negative feedback loop in our mind, is we want to scratch that thought out so that it stops playing over and over and over again. And when you have these thoughts, ask yourself, are these thoughts serving me or are these thoughts sabotaging me? And if they're making you anxious, if they're making your heart race, they're making you where you have insomnia and you can't sleep at night, sis, you're sabotaging yourself with these thoughts. And we have to change them. We have to reach for better thinking thoughts, which is, Gabby Bernstein, she always says, reach for a better thinking thought or a better feeling thought. And it doesn't have to be a big jump. It just has to be one step better. So if you're thinking of your son dying, thinking of, well, I'm grateful he's here today. Okay, that's just a little better, right? I'm not saying he's not ever going to die, but I'm grateful he's here today. How can I love on him and make today matter most? There's always a better thinking thought we can reach for. So we talked about strategies of overcoming fear, really recognizing it, scratching it out. But there's going to be new things that you do. So, for example, I've never written a book in my life. And if y'all know me well, I'm not a great reader because I did not read growing up. My mother at 75 to this day will tell you she hates reading, and she just never read to us as children. She never inspired us to read. She never recommended a book. She never encouraged any reading whatsoever. If anything, she discouraged it. And I cannot spell to save my life. I truly have no business writing a book. But my passion, my purpose for sharing my story of where I came from and letting you know if I came from food stamps and from food stamps and turning those food stamps into fortunes, then you can too. And so I wanted to get my book out because my intention, my goal is if my book can change one person's life, like Judge Judy's book changed my life, then that goal will be accomplished. Then that purpose will have been fulfilled. So, not that I know what I'm doing, writing a book, I found the help. I have 2 book editors. I have a publisher. I found the right people to help me. So instead of being stuck in fear, instead of being paralyzed by the thought of not knowing what I'm doing, instead of being paralyzed by the thought of I have no business doing this, I took action. And that is the key. If you're feeling fearful of something, take action. And if the only thing you can think of to do is moving your body, then that's fantastic because it will flip you out of that state of mind. Because remember, if you want to change your mood or shift your mood, move your body. So get down and do 10 push-ups. I promise you won't be thinking about the fear anymore. Go out for a jog, go dancing, go play fetch with your dog. Whatever you do, just move your body to move your state of mind and then come back to it. But taking action will get you a step further away from the fear. So what I did was I reached out to a friend that had already written a book. And I said, help me. What do I do? What's the first step? And he said, contact Lori and Kathy and let them know you're interested. And that's exactly what I did. And here we are, just a few weeks away from publishing my first book, From Food Stamps to Fortunes, where I grew up on literally food stamps and welfare, not having read, I don't even think a single book my whole adolescence. I didn't start reading books until I got into college when I had to read books. And I truly remember the day sitting at the cardiovascular unit charting with Dr. Brizzolera, the cardiologist, and saying, I am so glad I never have to read another book in my life. And he turned to me and he said, Yvonne, why would you say that? Books help you. They help you grow. They help you get better. They help you serve. They help you do so much in life. I never forgot that. You guys, that was in 2007. Here we are in the fall of 2024, and I never forgot that. And it was Judge Judy's book that literally fell off the shelf at the Arizona library after I was going through my first divorce, feeling completely lost. I moved to a completely different state to start a whole new life, not knowing what I was doing, where I was going, had no education. And I read her book, Beauty Fades, Dumb is Forever, and it changed my life. And so that's what I want From Food Stamps to Fortunes to do to some other woman, is to help her change her life, help her to know what is possible, to put aside her fear and to know that she can do big things. And even if they're scary, a buffalo will face the storm. It will face it and go through it. And so when you have the fear, recognize that it's just false evidence that appears real and put it where it belongs. Go through it and realize that you're going to come out stronger and better. You're going to come through it with more resilience. So I can tell you so many stories of fear, but this one, I had to save it for the last because it's the best. It's so good. I actually put it in my book because I'm a big visualizer, and all my mentors come from books I've read, podcasts I listened to, stages I've gone, like conferences I've gone to. Tony Robbins has his own private island in Fiji. And in 2019, I attended an event in Las Vegas. It was a weekend event, and it was with Dean Graziosi, and it was with Gary Vee, a few others. And he was talking about his private island in Fiji and how he takes all of the participants to this spot off the side of the road where there's two 50-foot telephone poles mounted in the ground with stakes or like pegs on them. And you put on a harness and you climb to the top of this 50-foot telephone pole, and you have to pull yourself on top of the top of it, which is probably no more than like 6 by 6 on the top. I don't know, like literally 2 feet. That's all that will fit on the top. But you have to pull yourself up onto the top without falling over. And then once you get to the top, there is a bar that you have to jump out to and catch. Okay? So I didn't know this, but in my mind, from that moment, I began visualizing what it would be like to climb this 50-foot pole. For 3 years, I visualized this, you guys, for 3 years. And I was like, I'm going to Fiji. I'm going to climb this pole. I am terrified, literally terrified of heights. I can't even walk. I'm paralyzed, literally, you guys, the worst fear. And I was like, I'm doing it. I don't know how, but through the grace of God, I'm going to get to the top of that pole. So we arrive in Fiji. They shuttle bus us to this tiny spot, this grassy area off the side of the highway. And we all get out of the bus and it begins to pouring down rain. I don't know if you've ever been to Fiji, but these are monstrous raindrops. And we are standing in puddles of water. And they're like, okay, mount up, which means buoy on, get on that pole. And here I go. I put myself at nearly the front of the line. I think I was like the second or third in line. Pouring down rain. Luckily, I had a hat on, but I could hardly see. And I told myself, I'm going to have a little chant in my head. Freedom, freedom, freedom. With every rung of that pole, I chanted freedom. Now, this is the trick. If you don't get past a certain point, you can't come down because you'll get caught up on the spikes that are poking out of the side of the pole. So you have to get so high up to be able to buoy down. You guys, there were grown men crying. They couldn't even get past the spikes to a safe point to come down. I mean, we all had some real fear climbing this telephone pole. So here I am, pouring down rain. Each rung, I'm saying in my head, freedom, freedom, freedom. And my freedom was from fear. What other things in my life am I fearful of that's keeping me stuck, that's keeping me paralyzed, that's keeping me from reaching my fullest potential? And so I chanted, and I got all the way to the top, and I balanced myself. Oh my gosh, I think it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I pulled myself up 1 foot. I settled that 1 foot. I maneuvered it to make room for the other foot. And I balanced myself. And I counted 1, 2, 3. Oh, and I caught my other foot. And I had to slowly stand up to where I was in an upright position, to where I could leverage myself to spring forward to grab the bar. Now, the bar is like a swing. It's not stationary. It's swinging. And it's PVC pipe wrapped around this thick wire. And it rolls. So here I am. I'm on the edge. And I'm thinking, just jump out as hard as you can. Do not look down. Do not look down. Look out and up. And here I go. 1, 2, 3. And I jump and I grab it with one hand and it rolls and I slip and I fall 50 feet down to the bottom. But you know what? It was the best feeling ever because I made it to the top. I achieved my goal that I had been visualizing for 3 years. But see, had I known that there was a bar I was supposed to catch 3 years ago, I would have visualized that process too. But I was the only female in a group of 150 that was able to even touch the bar. So I was super proud of myself. And if you know me, you know as soon as I got down, I wanted to go up again because I wanted to catch the bar and hold on tight with two hands. But that's my story for you. We all, as humans, experience fear in our lives. We all do. But do not let it stop you. Do not let it paralyze you, because I promise on the other side of that fear is freedom. It's freedom. It's on the other side of that fear is your life's fullest potential, because you're going to discover that you can overcome it, that you can conquer it, that you can be like the buffalo and go through it. So if you want to write a book like I did, do it. Reach out to me. I will be your biggest cheerleader, your biggest fan, and I'll connect you with all of my people. If you want to climb a 50-foot pole, do it. Go to Fiji. It's the most beautiful island. Make it a goal and make it happen. If you want to be a coaching client of mine and you need me to help you get through your fear, sign up for a coaching package. Any of my coaching students would love to share their experience with you. Coaching is powerful. I truly have 5 coaches in my life right now, and I do not live without a coach, because guess what? I'm always striving for more. I'm always striving to become better. I'm always striving to become the best of Yvonne each and every day. And you know, this podcast is for you because I want you to become the best of you. And if you haven't picked up my journal, we have a journal for you, the best of you, so that each and every day you can write down those thoughts, those fearful thoughts that you have, and you can overcome them. So go to thebestofyvonne.com if you want your own journal, or if you want to read my book, where it's packed full of nuggets and wisdom to become the best version of you, to overcome fear, to overcome self-sabotaging thoughts, to overcome the imposter syndrome, whatever it is that you want to overcome. I'm your bestie through it all. So until then, I love you all, and I'll see you on our next episode.